Morning, NFC East fans. Happy Hump Day. Happy Wednesday. But it doesn't feel like a Wednesday this week, Tone Deshields, because the Eagles play the Giants on Saturday, and we're only 3 days away from this wild. It's not a wild card weekend anymore, but this divisional playoff round is going to be so wild, so crazy, and the Eagles got the best possible news you could imagine on Tuesday, which is essentially Wednesday in NFL terms because of the short week. Well, not for the Eagles, obviously. But let's just get short, sweet, and to the point. Jalen Hurts was not listed on an injury report yesterday, and that tells me his shoulder is good to go.
No, sir. You're absolutely right, man. It's really good to see, man, as always, man. Welcome to Good Morning NFC East. Like my man Jeff Kerr said, this is really exciting, really good news for your Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts was not on the injury report, Jeff. Like you said, I'm super excited about it. I'm happy about it. And I was listening to his press conference, and he's always approaching it with his stoic, mentality, his demeanor. And he says something really interesting when they asked him about teams potentially targeting that shoulder. And he said, "It's football. I got a bounty on me every week. I go out there on the field. Whatever happens, happens." Man, what's your thoughts on that? And then we'll get deeper into just what this injury status means to the Philadelphia Eagles' entire playoff hopes, especially in the divisional round.
Well, he's right. Like, every team's going to be going after that shoulder. They know that's the weak point. That's just the game. And he's a running quarterback. Jalen Hurts ran for over 700 yards this year. So he's going to be that guy. He's the target, just like Daniel Jones is the target for the Giants. I don't have any problem with Jalen Hurts saying that. I'm glad he didn't answer really any questions about the injury yesterday because there's nothing to talk about, right? Everybody wants to know how that shoulder is doing. Everybody's concerned how that shoulder, all the talking heads on national media and stuff. I'm a talking head, but I also know Jalen Hurts is fine. Everybody wants to know how that shoulder is going to be. How's he feeling? Look, it's going to hurt. We're in what? Mid-January? I'm sure tons of guys have injuries, but it's not worth really. I'm just going to say this, Tone. The only injury I think I'm concerned about on this team is the guy who probably isn't going to play Saturday, and that's Avonte Maddox. But the Eagles kind of tipped their hand on what they're going to do in Week 18 with C.J. Gardner-Johnson going to play the slot and have Reed Blankenship at safety. Other than that, I'm fine. Am I concerned about Lane Johnson? Yeah, but again, limited participant in practice. He's going to give it a go. He's going to play through this injury. But the number one thing is your starting quarterback, at least according to that injury report, is 100% healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't deny what it means to the rest of the team, right? And everyone's been really careful about what they say about this injury. Even A.J. Brown, he doesn't speak on, Jalen Hurts' health, no matter how close he is to him. But again, Jalen Hurts being healthy, it means good things for the Eagles. Now, can they protect him? Will Lane Johnson be able to hold up, right? Lane Johnson, his injury is more interesting than anything because it's really about his tolerance. Can he last through the playoffs? Depending on how far the Philadelphia Eagles go, that's really going to be interesting. And you brought up a really key injury that really stood out to me, and that's the Avonte Maddox injury. And it's so funny you brought that up because that goes right into the stat that I told you about before we got started that I wanted to surprise you with, Jeff. So follow me here, right? Obviously, since Avonte Maddox been out, Josiah Scott's been going in there. When C.J. Gardner-Johnson got hurt, we know Kavon Wallace and Reed Blankenship, those guys got some snaps and so on and so forth. So they were compromised to a degree in pass defense, right? So according to Football Outsiders, the Eagles' pass defense versus number one wide receivers, and I'm giving you rankings, by the way. When it comes to Eagles' pass defense versus number one wide receivers, the Philadelphia Eagles are ranked second in the NFL. That's Darius Slay's matchup usually.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about Darius Slay that much. He's been pretty healthy this year for the most part. When it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles pass defense versus number two wide receivers, they're ranked fourth. That's Bradbury's guy. Bradbury's been pretty good all year, pretty healthy. He's been pretty stout. This is where it gets interesting. When it comes to defending the slot receiver or worse, the Philadelphia Eagles are ranked 22nd in the NFL. That's a pretty large disparity for a team that's defending the pass so well. But again, that goes back into what you mentioned about Avonte Maddox, him not being there, him not being a constant presence, and having to have guys like Josiah Scott there. And when Chauncey Gardner-Johnson wasn't there, Reed Blankenship had to come in, and I think Kevon Wallace had some snaps as well. The bottom line is this team is compromised in that area of the field. The numbers tell you that. And Football Outsiders do pretty good work in terms of their analytics and their numbers. You know, I'm not really an analytics guy, but they do a good job with that. What's your thoughts on that stat I just gave you?
I'm not surprised, honestly. So I knew the Eagles had trouble covering the slot. And I knew they were one of – if someone would have asked me straight up before you told me that, I would have said, well, they got to be in the 20s, right? I mean, it kind of made sense because Avonte Maddox was hurt all year, essentially. He played at the beginning of the year, was very good, got injured, came back, got injured again. They needed to do something to fix that. That's why Chauncey Gardner-Johnson coming back was so huge. You don't have to play him at safety. They would prefer to play him at safety because he's one of the biggest playmaking safeties in football, but you got to deal with what you got to deal with at this time in the year. So you move Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to safety. You found out Kayvon Wallace can hold his own when you need him to, but Reed Blankenship has been the guy that kind of emerged out of the pack, right? He's the guy that earned the snaps, earned the playing time. So, again, this is another thing, too. On the Giants, their wide receivers, Kenny Golladay is not a threat. I'm sorry, he's not a threat. He's terrible. Isaiah Hodgins looks like he can be a player. But it's Isaiah Hodgins, right? Richie James, Darius Slayton. Like, these guys aren't, they got to worry about covering Justin Jefferson this week.
Yeah, that team is built up with a bunch of number threes, bottom tier number twos. You know, they're really not a threat in that regard. And, you know, with Avonte Maddox not being on IR, they expect him to come back at some point in his playoff run. So they're going to try to improve in that area, but it doesn't matter what team it is, Jeff, right? They're going to try to expose that area of the field. Even in the Saints game, that was the area of the field that they attacked in the passing game for the most part. Even the Cowboys.
And they didn't have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for those games either.
Exactly.
So again, it's hard to get a read on anything because the Giants didn't play anybody week 18. I'm just going back off what I have in week 14. And for the Giants they don't have that great of a run defense to begin with. It's fine. It's not excellent. Do people forget the Eagles ran for 253 yards off them?
I'm glad you said that, Jeff, because I have a question for you now. Knowing what we know about this coaching staff, knowing what we know about the Giants and their deficiencies, and knowing what we know about the playoffs and how quickly you can be here and how quickly you can be gone, do we trust this coaching staff to do what they need to do versus what they want to do? In
terms of, I'm trying to figure.
You mentioned the run game, right? And being able to attack the Giants in the run game. We've seen time and time again throughout the season where they've gone up against teams that can't stop the run and they decided to pass, right? Instead of believing what your eyes are telling you, they're saying, well, you know, what if they double down on the run this week because we know they suck at it? All right, let's try to pass and catch them off guard. No, they suck against the run. They always have. Attack. So, you know, do you trust them to do what they need to do?
This is what I think they're going to do because I think a lot of teams in the NFL do this now. They're going to use the pass to set up the run. And I think how they're going to do that is they're going to try to get A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith the ball early. The guy they really need to get the ball early to is Dallas Goedert. The Giants have trouble defending tight ends. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So I think they're going to do that. But you know how, to me, they can establish the run? Actually run their quarterback. Everybody gets upset when Jalen Hurts runs, but that is part of his game. I am not worried about Jalen Hurts' shoulder. It's win or go home. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt. This is the playoffs now. This isn't like Lamar Jackson with a knee injury where he can't play. This is just a shoulder that they had to get loose. Jalen Hurts had to shake off the run. That's why I'm very confident in this football team going into this weekend. I'm going to say it point blank, Tone. They should not lose. This is a game they should not lose. They are better than this football team. Can the Giants beat them? Absolutely. But this is a football game. Watching that Week 14 game, watching some of the stuff they did Week 18, watching the Giants game against the Vikings, watching the Giants over the last couple of weeks, the Eagles should not lose this football game. Point blank, period.
if they lose this game, will this be one of the biggest upsets that the Eagles have that the Eagles have experienced in a long time?
This will be the most disappointing loss for this franchise since they lost 27-10 to the Buccaneers in the 2002 NFC Championship game, the final game at the Vet. That is the reality. Now, Super Bowl 39 was disappointing, but the Patriots were favored in that game. And the Eagles did enough where they could lose. The 2002 NFC Championship game was a game the Eagles should not have lost. That team was better than Tampa Bay. They were better than Oakland. They were better than Tennessee. That team was destined to win the Super Bowl. But Tampa Bay exposed the one weakness the Eagles had, and that was covering in the middle of the field with their linebackers. Again, defense is a little different then. Levon Kirkland couldn't get it done. Barry Gardner couldn't get it done. Joe Jurevicius had a big game against them, as we all know. Blaine Bishop, he played banged up. He played hurt, and that exposed him too, because Blaine Bishop did a lot of he covered up for a lot of the deficiencies at linebacker that year. Sean Barber had a really good year, but Blaine Bishop covered up for a lot. And Tampa exposed it, and they ended up scoring 20 points on offense, and the Eagles couldn't do anything with a limited McNabb because he was still shaking off the rust from his injury. As you all know, he missed 6 weeks that year. But that Eagles team was really good, just like this team. That's why I said this team should not lose to the Giants. The Giants have never been beaten 3 times in a season. I don't want to hear about how hard it is to sweep a third team because that's nonsense. The Giants are not red hot. That's nonsense too. This is all nonsense. If we line them up and play 60 minutes, the Eagles should come out on top.
So it's actually, and I've been talking about this, right? It was a good thing for Jalen Hurts to play in that Week 18 game to knock that rust off. Because, again, why would you want him to knock rust off in the playoffs where the stakes are the highest? Regardless of how it went down with that number 1 seed, if we would have clinched it at Dallas or New Orleans, I would have wanted Jalen Hurts to play in that final game. And, you mentioned Donovan McNabb trying to knock off that rust coming off of that 6-week injury, right? You mentioned the fact that the defense got exposed in the middle of the field. The Eagles, yes, C.J. Gardner-Johnson came back, and what I expect them to do, like they've been doing the past since he came back, what I expect them to use him in like a hybrid role, play safety in some packages, play slot in other packages, depending on the need and depending on the personnel on the field. But this Eagles team right now, they have one weakness, and that is the middle of the field. Kaiser White got a little exposed when Avonte Maddox went out. T.J. Edwards, similar outcome. So, this coaching staff, they have some work ahead of them. Jonathan Gannon, especially. I expect the offense, excuse me, I expect the offense to put up points. That's not even really my main concern. The offense is, let's be honest, in that Week 18 game, the score should have been like 34 to like 19 or something, or 17, because the Eagles moved the ball effortlessly. The problem was the red zone offense. As a matter of fact, what's your concerns or what's your thoughts on the red zone offense going into the playoffs, going into this matchup? How do you think the Eagles offense matches up with the New York Giants in the red zone right now?
So if I was doing observations strictly on the Week 18 game, just not even factoring in what they were doing to protect Jalen Hurts, the vanilla play calling.
Also include the Giants red zone defense in that Vikings game. I want to hear your thoughts about how you think the Eagles will fare against them right now because they're red hot, and also just think about that Week 18 game as well.
I mean, I'm just looking at it as, is it a concern? Yeah, a little bit, but you're also going to be running your quarterback a little bit, right? You're going to have the ultimate cheat code, just like the Giants have a cheat code in Daniel Jones, right? But Daniel Jones runs, 86% of his runs have gone for positive yards when he takes off. That's huge. Jalen Hurts is up there, but he's not at 86%. I think he's in like the 70 to 75% range, which is still very good. But you have an opportunity now when you get inside the 5. You can give it to Miles Sanders. You give it to Jalen Hurts. You could do a bootleg. I think the red zone offense for the Eagles is going to be fine. I'm just going to say this, and this is where I get upset. Saquon Barkley only had 9 carries. Daniel Jones had 17. And I'm counting the kneel downs here. Really, it was 14. But I'm looking at it as, okay, these guys had a week off. They were rested. They only have 6 days off now. The key to me to stopping this Giants team easily, you got to stop Saquon Barkley. You cannot let Saquon Barkley have an opportunity to take over this game. And Saquon Barkley has 9 carries for 50-some yards again. I think you did your job.
Do you think they come out with that 5-man front early and kind of establish themselves and run defense?
I think that they could. I think they could try to stack the box, but I don't want them. I want them to be them, right? If you want to play that zone type of defense, I think that's what you got to do. I think you got to challenge these Giants receivers and say, hey, you know what? I see a Hodgins, Darius Slayton, go beat us. You know, you got James Bradbury and Darius. I will say this. James Bradbury, I'll be shocked if he has a bad game this week, because this is where it really gets personal. Because now you have the opportunity to say, y'all shouldn't have cut me.
That's true. It's very true, man. You know, we have our guy Kevin Bullard coming up soon. He hasn't quite gotten here yet, but you know, this is a really big matchup. This is the NFC East rivalry. The Commanders are the stepchild, but the NFC East right now, 3 out of the 4 teams are in the division round, man. Jeff, the NFC East is back, correct?
Oh, it's back. It's back and better than ever. This is the first division to have 3 teams go to the divisional round since 1997. And back then, there were 5 teams in the division. I mean, this division's loaded. Like, you're the Giants right now. You should feel proud of yourselves, honestly. 9-7-1. You're one of the 8 teams left standing in a year where everybody thought you were going to be terrible. I thought Brian Dable was going to give him 5 or 6 wins, Tone, and you got him 9. I don't know if he should be coach of the year. I think Doug Pearson's going to get that honor just because of Jacksonville was an even bigger mess than the Giants. But Dable and Mike Kafka and Wink Martindale, all 3 of them, there's a reason why Mike Kafka and Wink Martindale are being sought after in this head coaching cycle, because they're really good coaches.
Yeah, definitely. So this is what we're going to do, Jeff. Let's hit our first break. Let's try to tap in with our guy, Kevin Bullard, to make sure he has everything he needs to get here and give us that dope Giants perspective. You guys are locked in on Good Morning NFC East with Jeff Kerr, and I'm your guy, Tone Deshields II. Keep it locked, you guys.